Is it visible?
Yes, sir, visible.
Okay. So, module 4 of your subject is Indian scenario, public policy, SEBI, corporation in global society. So today and tomorrow we should finish module 2. There are 2 more classes, I think, after that. So we'll finish the module 5. And I have talked to Rashmi madam today evening. I will share with her. I think she will be able to share the PDF for module 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now these are the 3 things we will, 4 things we will read. And Indian scenario, we have already read about Indian corporate governance structure. We have also read about some public policies, but we'll read something more. SEBI, we will read in little detail what they can do and what is there. And then what is the impact of globalization, and it is now felt that corporations are operating not in a limited society, but in a global society. So corporate governance models of a particular country may not be very significant to a company now because they have to operate globally. So they have to be very careful in doing that. And as we know, we have industries since long before independence. There have been industrialists and there have been industry in India. Even though there was no corporate governance policies or rules and regulations by Government of India, still there were companies were formulating their own policies and operating accordingly. Industrial houses like Tata Villas have been there, and they have really become renowned and established only because they followed some kind of corporate governance developed by them. So without a formal framework available at that point of time, still they were doing that. But as I have said earlier, also historical perspective, that corporate governance mechanism started after the Harshad Mehta scam relating to Indian stock market. And the formal corporate governance codes were started in 1990s by CII. And that is the, it means we have a tradition of history of industry, corporate governance in various industries, but those were localized, independent policies followed by those companies only. There was no uniform standards or uniform policy. Only after the implementation of SEBI Act, then the modifications in various provisions of in Indian Companies Act, the proper corporate governance guidelines started happening in India. The public policies are national guidelines on responsible business conduct. These are all very important things for ensuring corporate governance in Indian corporations. Then listing regulation and disclosure requirements. I have been telling LODR requirements, and that is one where it came in 2015. This is applicable for companies which are listed in corporate in stock exchange. We are public listed companies. Then insolvency and bankruptcy IVR course 2016. This is another very good step in establishing corporate governance or ensuring that corporate governance is done well. Well means, see, a shareholder who has invested in a company and that company goes sick, if there is no policy or guideline how to revive or how the management will be handed over to another company or how that company will continue to operate, then the investment brought in by all these people will go waste. So that is why Government of India became very strict on NPAs, and they also started this bankruptcy code so that any company which becomes an NPA is dealt with in a proper manner and in an expeditious manner, so that the matter is settled and the shareholders do not suffer a lot. Then another is business responsibility report. The first one is National Guideline on Responsible Business Conduct. So business responsibility report is more or less a report on how these guidelines are being followed by a corporation. These are all These all have to be practiced by Indian companies on a continuous basis, and there are mechanisms to cross-check that. Unfortunately, today only I was reading that Baiju, such a big company, such as Beast, famous company in India, and it was one point of time it was revered as a successful startup. How it has published its financial statements only in 2021. 2021 was the last financial documents which was made public. 21, 22, 22, 23. They have done nothing, and nobody has even taken them for task. Now, when they fail to pay, people are realizing and coming back. So you can say there have been a failure by registrar of companies and also by SEBI in Baiju's case. And such failures will help companies or promoters to run away with money. They will not be able to, I mean, these shareholders' money will not be safe. So that is where stricter regulations will be needed. And I think some new modification into the code or into the law can come, or some guidelines may be issued to avoid such things in future. And last policy which can really help shareholders to ensure corporate governance in a company is class action. A class action can be initiated by shareholders if around 2% of the issued capital, or 100 shareholders, or 5% of the total numbers of shareholders. Whichever number is higher or lower, whatever. And if they meet 2% of the issued capital, that will be okay. Suppose in a company, 2% is not, even 100 shareholders are also there, or 5% of the total number of shareholders are all there, anything can be done. Depending on the company size, these three conditions one of the three conditions has to be met, and then these shareholders can file a case under a class action. Class action is a separate provision in the law, which will ensure expeditious settlement of that case. This will also help minimize expenditure from the shareholders' part, and this also saves a lot of time for the court. So, rather than a criminal case or a normal case, this helps in a better way. And these class actions, cases against under class action are filed to recover losses from directors, auditors, or even from company where there have been fraud or wrongful actions and omissions. In Europe and US, class actions cases are very common. People do file that. In India, these are rare, and you can say they are absent because our shareholders are not that organized, and further they are not needing that to be done. So that is why. Okay. This is national guideline for responsibility business conduct. This is a voluntary guideline, and this was started as by Ministry of Corporate Affairs as National Voluntary Guidelines on the Social, Environmental, and Economic Responsibilities of Business in 2011. So, responsible business conduct should cover, or is always covers, social, environmental, and economic responsibilities of the business. So NGRBC 2018, which started with 2011 as the NVG. This ensures that the business is responsible towards society, and responsible towards its shareholders, and also responsible towards its stakeholders. Now, how they are responsible towards society? If they maintain sustainability, if they maintain environment, then they are responsible towards society. If they also look into the need of society around them, that is also responsibility towards society. Then economic responsibilities, if they carry out their business in the most transparent and most effective way, then that is economic responsibility. Paying tax is economic responsibility. So NGRBC is a guideline given by Government of India to ensure that companies are properly governed. NGRBC reiterates the need to encourage business to ensure that they also encourage and support their suppliers, vendors, distributors, partners, and other collaborators to follow them. Actually, economic responsibilities or a responsibility as a whole also is towards the employees. Now, suppose there is a supplier who doesn't pay minimum wages to its employees or exploits the workers, and he supplies you at a very cheap rate, and you buy because it is beneficial to you. But from point of view of corporate governance, this is an irresponsible act, because to only minimize profit, you cannot harm the people who are involved in the supply chain. So there are actually companies in Tata and Aditya Birlas and others. Basically in Tata, every supplier, once they are registered as a supplier, they have a vendor code. They are time to time supposed to sign these various guidelines on corporate governance. And they have to declare that we will be doing this and that. So that is how the NGRBC extends corporate governance to the people who are involved or who are stakeholders of the company. Responsibility for adoption and adherence to these guidelines is of the highest governance structure of a company, that is the board. So board has to ensure that these guidelines are implemented in a corporation. There are some principles which comes under this NGRBC. The first principle is business should conduct and govern themselves with integrity and in a manner that is ethical, transparent, and accountability. Can you explain what is integrity, any one of you?
Sir, the quality of being consistent with the values of the institution as well as with the personal values.
Is it only relating to values or anything else?
Moral principles also follow.
Moral principles are more or less values, but first word is consistency. If you consistently express a behavior in similar situation, if you are put into a situation, anytime you are put into that situation, if your response is same, that is called integrity. Is it clear? Means, suppose you are somewhere, you are seeing a financial benefit. You are denying that at one situation. The next time when you get another opportunity to make some financial benefit, you jump into that. Then you are a man with lack of integrity. You are not a man of integrity. Similarly,
being honest and strong moral principle.
That morality, honesty, value based, all that is there. Ethics, that is there. But see, if you apply ethics or you become morally proper in a particular case, and then in the next case you don't implement that, then it's a lack of integrity. Integrity is consistency in behavior. If you are following a moral value, please stick to that for every time you are faced with the same situation. Is it clear? Like, when a iron rod is heated, it will give you, when you touch that, it will burn your finger. Is it not? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
And
sir.
whether you touch, X touches or Y touches, anyone touches, it will do the same thing. So that is the integrity. Understood? Means when you are online things you are doing. So when you do that, like the meeting we are joining, if the same code and password, every one of us can come into the same platform, that means the system is having integrity. It is not doing anything else. So the integrity is consistency. So first word is consistent. Second is all these good qualities, values. If you if you killed somebody on a particular situation and next situation arises, you again still kill them, it is not integrity. So negative things are not part of integrity, but positive things are part of integrity. But integrity suggests that every time you face the same situation, your behavior is predictable. you will do the same way. So then that is why it is written ethical, transparent, and accountable. So you have to be ethical, you can't be wrong, but you can't in your office, you should not treat every employee differently, depending on their allegiance, their caste, creed, and all that. No, that should not be. Your employee with the same quality, same thing should be about same, like, India and BCCI this year, what they did, that they are now paying same amount of money to women cricketer and men cricketer. They have now brought them at par. So you can say they are doing something which is ethical. Then principle 2, business should provide goods and services in a manner that is sustainable and safe. They should not harm the environment. They should not do such act which will put the future generation into trouble or at loss. Sustainability means that whatever you are doing, it sustains over a long period of time. This global warming, that is because of an unsustainable way of life we have been leading. Because global warming is not, it cannot be sustained. When a global warming, whatever has happened is because the environment could not sustain the way we have been operating. So that is why global warming has resulted in. So next point is sustainable and safe. Safety should also be there. Then principle 3, business should respect and promote the well-being of all employees, including those in their value chain. As it is said that the supplier, the vendor, your distributor, your all of them are part of your value chain. So, and even the customer and customer. So all of them are part of your value chain. Your law, your whatever you are doing should be applicable in equality to all of this. You have to ensure that the vendor, the supplier also treats, as I have said, also treats his employees in a minimum way. It is not like that. Whatever your company is paying, the vendor should also pay that. No, but the vendors should not discriminate, should not pay lesser than what is supposed to be paid. So all that you have to take some guarantee and all that. Like, this is done in a minimum way by ensuring PF, registration, GST payment. So when you are registered with a big corporation, they will ask you to give all the certificates. So that is how it goes on. Principle 4, business should respect the interest and be responsive to all its stakeholders. So all the stakeholders, including shareholders, you should be responsive. Now we have read in some module that you cannot just please all the stakeholders at the same point of time. So you have to do a balancing act. Give some benefit, take out some benefit from someone and give it to others. So you have to balance between profit and also the proper financial state of your supplier. You can't expect your supplier to give something at a very low price for you to make a lot of profit. You are responsible in a way to ensure that the supplier also do exist. They are also in a position to operate. So similarly, when you pay dividend, you should also take care of the company's expansion and other things. You should not pay dividend just for the sake of pleasing your shareholders and not bothering about company's growth. Principle 5, business should respect and promote human rights. That is one of the biggest things. And in all developed countries, US and Europe, this is one of the biggest issues. They generally will not be able to continue business with organizations and countries which do not follow human rights. So that is where that becomes a big issue, and it also should be followed. It should not be neglected. Principle 6, business should respect and make efforts to protect and restore environment. This goes without saying, because you are talking of sustainability, so you have to do that. Principle 7, business when engaging in influencing public and regulatory policy should do so in a manner that is responsible and transparent. So it says that wherever a company can influence public and regulatory policy. You know that big corporations in India like Reliance and Adani Group, and even to some extent you can say Birlas, Mahindras and all that, they have tremendous influence on the governments also, local government, state government, and even the central government. There was a time, I don't know if you can remember, when Pramod Mahajan was IT minister and when Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji was the prime minister, you know, it was said that Mukesh Ambani was controlling the IT policy of India to suit its company. And it was felt very by other industries also that way. But that should not be. That is not a responsible corporate CA. It should allow the government do whatever is needed. It should not do something which will monopolize its benefits. No. And so when you are influencing a public or regulatory policy, like, you know, before the budget, every year, the finance minister, the prime minister, they do consult the business houses, the corporations or these confederations. So take opinion about what is the expectation and see what best they can do. So there you should give your views and all, but you should not try to influence a decision which will only benefit you and will not be beneficial for others. Cartel formation can also be part of that. So you should not be in a cartel. Business, then principle 8 is business should promote inclusive growth and equitable development. What is inclusive growth and equitable development?
Inclusive growth means growth for everyone.
Yeah, no section of the society or employees or whatever is left behind. There is not, I mean, it should be like that no group is preferred and other groups are not preferred. No, it should be equal to all. And equitable is there should not be much difference between the rich and the poor. Means the lowest employee should not be paid in a way far less, which is not true. But whenever you are paying the lowest employee, that should also be a reasonable payment. It can't be equitable in a way because, you know, the MD and the chairman, they draw disproportionately high money than even the highest officer in that hierarchy. But anyway, there should be some equitability. So some minimum standards, minimum things should be given to everyone. Then principle 9, business should engage with and provide value to their consumers in a responsible manner. Whatever you are giving, it should not be a fake promise. If you say that your product has certain benefits, it should be very clear that your product has these benefits. You should not just advertise but not give. No. Or you should not advertise wrong things. Next, public policy is LODR regulation. This is listing requirements. When a company gets listed in stock exchange, this LODR regulations is applicable, and the agreement between the stock exchange and the company is guided by this LODR requirements. The LODR regulations are applicable to an entity which has listed any of the following designated securities on the recognized stock exchanges. Specified securities like equity shares, convertible securities listed on main board or SME exchanges or institutional trading platforms. Basically, all that is convertible debenture or khali plain debentures. There are also bonds which are listed in both the stock exchanges and all. Everything which can be traded or which can be sold and bought by public. So these are the LODR applies. The non-convertible debt securities, non-convertible redeemable preference shares, perpetual debt instruments, perpetual non-cumulative preference shares, Indian depository receipts, securitized debt instruments. Debt instruments securitized means what? Security is when you are issuing a debt, money you are taking a loan from one person, there is something collateral given for that, or there is some security in case the company fails to keep its promise, then the loan can be repaid by liquidating that security. So that is one. There are unsecured debt instruments, there are secured debt instruments. Then units issued by mutual funds. So mutual funds also are bounded by LODR regulations. Other securities as may be specified by SEBI. All listed entities shall be required to execute a uniform listing agreement with recognized stock exchanges within 6 months from effective date of listing agreement. In the previous slide, if you see, or institutional trading platform, this can be an example when you are selling your mutual funds shares. You can sell it through your trading browser. You can sell it through the CAMS also. There are CAMS and K FinTech. So those platforms you can sell through. There are other platforms through which you can sell your mutual funds and all. Because for shares, generally you will be selling only at BSE or NSE. Maybe the trading terminal may be different, or the trading platform you are using is different, like Zerodha, IAFL or Sharekhan or whatever. And there are also metal exchange, there are also commodity exchange. So all things have to be regulated that way. So that is where this law comes in. A listed entity shall be required to execute a uniform listing agreement with recognized stock exchanges within 6 months from effective date of the listing agreement. Means from the date it is to be traded or listed in a stock exchange. Before that, you have to do that. Once that is done, then only it will be listed. 6 months time is given before the listing date. The listed entity shall ensure that key managerial persons, directors, promoters, or any other persons dealing with the listed entity complies with the responsibilities or obligations. Company secretary, who shall be compliance officer, shall ensure compliances under these regulations, and any qualified company secretary can be appointed as a compliance officer approved by a resolution of the board. Compliance certificate to be provided to stock exchanges by compliance officer and share transfer agent with respect to all the activities relating to share transfer. These are the basic requirements of LODR. Have a policy for preservation of documents, classifying them in at least 2 categories: documents to be preserved permanently and documents for preservation for less than 8 years. So the company dealing with any such instruments like equity, debenture, mutual funds and all that, they have to have a provisions inside their company for preservation of documents. Some documents are to be preserved permanently and others can be preserved for less than 8 years. Now, the performance of a particular mutual fund and the details relating to the performance of the mutual fund should be preserved permanently, because that may be needed for at any other time. But suppose somebody buys a share and then sell it. But if then if people say that folio number, if you have a folio number, you can come back again. But if you do not have a folio number, then it is gone. So when you sell the shares, the records are deleted, but your folio numbers remains. So you can come in any time, because that folio is bearing your KYC. So depending on the type of information, this policy has to be generated. And the next is file the reports, statements, documents, filings, and any other information with the recognized stock exchanges on the electronic platform, and proper infrastructure shall be put in place by listed entity. It says that the company who is dealing with such instrument have to have proper IT infrastructure in their place, so that they file things on electronic platform of the stock exchanges and all. So they cannot say we don't have. Actually, in a way, what is happening is for mutual funds and others, as I have shown, there are 2 platforms, which is CAMS and K FinTech, and there are other also, where they maintain the registrar. They become the registrar of the whole thing. So the mutual fund company has its own thing, but they depend on these two platforms. They are actually companies who are promoting these mutual funds are either listed with CAMS or with K-Fintech. Certain are listed with CAMS, certain are listed with K-Fintech. Both, one company cannot be listed in both. So depending on that, then the company CAMS or K-Fintech, they take responsibility of maintaining the record. But it doesn't mean that the mutual fund company is absolved of everything. They also have to do so. Dividend, interest, redemption or repayment shall be paid in electronic mode, and if not possible, then by warrants payable at par or check if the amount exceeds 1,500 per warrant, or check it has to be and that check has to be delivered through speed post only, and the courier or ordinary post shall not be allowed. So see, the policy states that you cannot use a courier or ordinary post. You have to do through speed post, because that will give a record. It's like registered post, and it will also ensure speedy recovery delivery. Seventh requirement is file with the recognized stock exchanges on a quarterly basis within 21 days from the end of each quarter, a statement giving the details of investor complaint received and action taken. The said statement shall be placed before the board on a quarterly basis. So you have to also inform the stock exchange regarding your handling of investors' grievances. So board of directors, what is the requirement as per law? Or what is the policy for composition of board of directors? That also is given by our Company Act, and it is to so that it ensures an accountability or proper functioning of every board. Board of directors shall have at least one woman director, and not less than 50% of the board of directors shall comprise of non-executive directors. This is a general guideline. And in India, the only problem is professional qualified directors, women directors available as independent directors are very few. So bigger promoters company, they appoint women director from their family group and all that. It becomes easier. But when talking of independent directors, it is very difficult to find a woman candidate, because generally earlier to these days, last 20-30 years, women have not been in bigger, higher position in companies, in private and public. Very few women are there. And it says that not less than 50% of the board of directors are comprised of non-executive directors. Means they should be part-time directors, not that the directors who are looking after the day-to-day affairs of the company. So that is also there. For a board with non-executive chairperson, at least 1/3 of the board shall be independent directors. Now see, a non-executive director and an independent director, what is the difference? Any idea?
No, sir.
Non-executive directors, I have said that they are not involved in the day-to-day operation of the company. Okay. But they can be related to the company in some way or other. But an independent director is a non-executive director, but he is not anyway related to the company, neither as a supplier, nor as a family member, nor as a relative, something. No. He is an independent, non-connected people. So why that has been done? It has been done to ensure accountability of the other directors. Because an independent fellow can question, can raise objections, need not fall in line with the promoters and all. So to ensure shareholders' safety. So for a board with non-executive chairperson, actually, anyone is from you is in public sector? Working in public sector, any one of you? No. Or any
sir.
state? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Where are you working?
Sir, Coal India.
Coal India. So You may be having CMD, Chairman cum Managing Director.
Yes.
So that is a different case. But there are private companies where they have only chairman, who is not a managing director. And what he says, there can be two posts, chairman and managing director, and there can be one post, chairman cum managing director, CMD. So it says that non-executive chairperson means he is not a full-time director. The chairman is not a full-time officer. Then at least 1/3 of the board shall be independent directors. And if there is no regular non-executive chairperson, if there is no regular non-executive chairperson, if there is a chairperson who is a executive director, then also, or if there are no chairpersons, there is a post like CMD, with chairman cum managing director, then at least half of the board shall be independent directors. If the non-executive chairperson is a promoter or is related to any promoter or person occupying management position at the level of board of directors or at one level below, then half of the board of directors shall consist of independent directors. So it says that if the non-executive chairperson, there is a non-executive chairperson, but he is related to the director or one level below, or has some way related to the promoter and all, then again it will be treated like that there is no non-executive chairperson and half of the board will be independent directors. The board of directors of the top 1,000 listed entities with effects from April 2019, 1st April 2019, and top 2,000 listed entities with effects from April 1, 2020 shall comprise of not less than 6 directors. It means what? That minimum strength of these bigger companies should be at least 6 directors. Where the listed company has outstanding SR, superior rights of or equity shares, at least half of the board of directors shall comprise of independent directors. Means, suppose superior rights of equity shares is something like a preferential share. But when it says equity share, here the voting rights are there. In preferential share, there is no voting rights, but in superior rights equity share, there is voting rights, and their voting right is may be disproportional to their holding. They can have more rights than what they are holding. There can be such offer in a company, but generally not there. But if it is there, then at least half of the board of directors shall comprise of independent directors. No listed entity shall appoint a person or continue the directorship of any person as a non-executive director who has attained the age of 75 years unless a special resolution is passed to that effect. So, and this is now applicable very strictly in India. So what they are doing is, the companies, they will put the person who has attained 75 years as an advisor. And he will not be in the board, but he will be advising the company on regular basis. With effect from 1st April 2022, the top 500 listed entities shall ensure that the chairperson of the board of such listed entities shall be a non-executive director. So from April 22, 1st April 22, the 500 top listed companies cannot have a regular non-executive chairperson. An executive chairperson they cannot have. They will have to have a non-executive chairperson, not to be related to the managing director or the chief executive officer. So the chairperson will be non-executive director and need not be related to the managing director or the chief executive officer. This shall not be.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
There is a short question actually. So, what is the basic difference between a chief managing director, CMD, and managing director, or
Yeah.
both can be same?
I could not get your question. See, chairman is the one who can put a veto on the decision of the board, because he is the last one, because chairman is the deciding authority. So a person who, if there are one chairman, one managing director is on day-to-day basis, he is the one who is heading the operation, something like that. Or he is the boss of all directors. But if there is a chairman, then he is even boss of the managing director. But suppose one person is there who is CMD, then he himself is the boss of all directors. So when there is a chairman, the MD has a boss. When there is no chairman, it is one person is only CMD, then he is the all-powerful fellow in that company.
And sir, can a company have more than one chairman?
It can't have.
Okay. Thank you.
So this application shall not be applicable to listed entities which do not have any identifiable promoters as per the shareholding patterns filed with the stock exchange. So can you give an example where at least one example you should be able to give, because there is a very well-known company who do not have an identifiable promoters as on today, but it's a very big listed company in India. Do you know?
Reliance, sir.
Identifiable promoter Reliance Nahanti.
Sir, third party is to semane
Ambanis are the promoters of Reliance. So third party could.
Tata?
No, Tata Sons is the promoter. But only company which is without a promoter is L&T, Larsen and Toubro.
Sir, ITC?
No, it's a Tata group of companies. As these names, common names are, I don't know anything beyond L&T because I have not seen yet, but there may be. I'm not ruling out. But L&T is one company where there is really no promoter, because Larsen and Toubro, two German engineers who started that company, are now dead, and none of their legal hair are have ever shown interest or have claimed anything on that. So that's a company where no promoter is there. The CMD, chairman, AM Naik and all, they are the boss. The employees really control that company as directors and all. There are independent directors. They are affected by all the laws and all that. So that is one company, and you all know at least there is a very good reputation of L&T as a company in India. So it is not applicable to L&T. Okay, that they have to have a non-executive chairperson. They can have, but it is not mandatory for them. The board of directors shall meet at least 4 times a year, because quarterly results have to be decided. They can meet more, but at least 4 times, with a maximum time gap of 120 days between any 2 meetings. So you cannot somehow try to manage 4 meetings in a very short span of time. You have to have at least 120 days gap. So there is every possibility that every quarter you have to have a meeting. You can't otherwise do that. Maximum gap is 120 days. Before that you can do, beyond that you cannot. The quorum of every meeting of the board of directors of the top listed 1000 listed entities with effect from April 2019 and then 2000 listed entities with effect from 1st April 2020 shall be 1/3 of its total strengths or 3 directors, whichever is higher. Please, Poco M2, please switch off your mic. You are traveling and there is noise. I don't know whose mobile is this. Actually, DDC should ensure the name of mobile holder, not the model. So, what it says, the quorum of every meeting of board of directors of the top 2000 listed entities with effect from 1st April 2020 shall be 1/3 of its total strength or 3 directors, whichever is higher. So, if there are 6 directors, then it will be 3, not 2. And if there are more, then it will be 1/3. Whichever is higher, including at least 1 independent director. And out of all these directors, 1 independent director has to be there in every board meeting. Otherwise, that board meeting cannot be classified as a meeting as per law. The board of directors shall periodically review compliance reports pertaining to all laws applicable to the listed entity prepared by the listed entity, as well as steps taken by the listed entity to rectify instances of non-compliances. The board of directors of the listed entity shall satisfy itself that plans are in place for orderly succession for appointment to the board of directors and senior management. So a succession plan also is the responsibility of the board of directors as per law. They have to ensure that there is proper succession plan, because that will ensure continuance of governance in that company. That will also ensure the benefits of all stakeholders. Unfortunately, in public sectors, which is controlled by Government of India, there have been instances that companies go headless. Headless means someone is appointed on an ad hoc basis, a chairman or director, for a very long time, because government want to put people of their choice, and that is why it gets delayed. So there have been instances. ONGC for some time back was going headless for a long time. No full-time chairman and a CMD was there. It was all some secretary or additional secretary from the ministry were operating at part-time. That doesn't speak well of a big corporation like ONGC. So that has to be avoided. But in private companies, the SEBI and the ROC can ensure that is happening well, because they can review and they can guide, influence the board to do that. The board of directors shall lay down a code of conduct for all members of the directors and senior management of the listed entity. Actually, in Tata Group, every employee who is joining even at the entry stage has to sign a code of conduct. There is an ethical code of conduct, and everyone has to sign. That is the rule of Tata Group. The code of conduct has suitably incorporated the duties of independent directors as laid down in Companies Act 2013. The board of directors shall recommend all fees or compensation, if any, paid to non-executive directors, including independent directors, and shall require approval of shareholders in general meeting. It is not that, please don't feel that whatever I'm writing is the only thing available in the Act. There are so many things available, but because of the paucity of time and all, I have only picked up which I felt are important things for you to know. Okay, so there are many things, but I have picked up few. The company can pay sitting fees to non-executive directors without approval of shareholders if the same is within the limits prescribed under Companies Act. So Companies Act itself has prescribed an amount which can be paid to non-executive directors for each meeting. So if it is paid within that, then there is no approval is required, because that is as per law. But generally, compensations are very high for non-executive directors in bigger corporations, and you need to have approval of the shareholders for that. I know in Vedanta there was a director from a retired director from a public sector company who was appointed as an independent director for Vedanta. At that time, Vedanta was listed in London Metal Exchange, and they had offices in London. So for their board meetings, he was paid in lakhs on a yearly basis. Lakhs means not 1 lakh or 2 lakh. It was really a very substantial amount. And all his visits and stay, everything was paid. That is already taken care. But beyond that, the sitting fees were in lakhs. So all the type of such payments have to be taken approval of. Approval of shareholders required for maximum number of stock options that may be granted to non-executive directors in any financial year and in aggregate. So how many ESOP, or not it's ESOP, it is DSOP, directors stock options. You are giving them preferential shares, or you are giving them shares for in lieu of compensation. So that number also has to be, there is a cap. You can't give unlimited shares. The approval of shareholders shall be obtained every year for the annual remuneration payable to a single non-executive director exceeding 50% of the total annual remunerations payable to all non-executive directors. If suppose one of the non-executive directors is paid half of the amount which is paid to all to the total non-executive directors, then that also needs approval. You can't pay disproportionately to anyone, and you have to get approval before paying. Independent directors shall not be entitled to any stock options because that will influence them to favor the management. So independent directors cannot have stock options. Only non-executive directors can have stock options. The fees or compensation payable to executive directors who are promoters or members of the promoter group shall be subject to the approval of shareholders by special resolution in general meeting if the annual remunerations payable to such executive director exceeds rupees 5 crore or 2.5% of the net profit of the listed entity, whichever is higher. The fees or compensation payable to executive directors who are promoters or members of the promoter group shall be subject to the approval of the shareholders by special resolution in general meeting. You know, in privately owned companies, the family members of the promoters can be paid this way because they are part of the promoter and they can be paid. And generally they are paid. But you know, the annual remuneration payable to such executive director, if they should exceeds rupees 5 crore or 2.5% of the net profits of the listed entity, then it has to go for a special resolution in general AGM. Or where there is more than one such director, the aggregate annual remuneration to such directors exceeds 5% of the net profits of the listed company, then also it needs special approval. Provided that the approval of the shareholder under this provision shall be valid till the expiry of the term of such director. Means every year you have to take their approval. You can't take approval one time and keep on paying. You can't do that. Every time you have to take approval of the shareholders. The minimum information to be placed before the board of directors is specified in Part A of Schedule 2 of the Companies Act. The Chief Executive Officer and the Chief Financial Officer shall provide the compliance certificate to the Board of Directors as specified in Part B of Schedule 2. Listed entities shall lay down procedure to inform members of Board of Directors about risk assessment and minimization procedures. The Board of Directors shall be responsible for framing, implementing, and monitoring the risk management plan for the listed entity. So the Board of Directors will have to give risk management plan. Actually, in the annual report, there is a section which will have this risk management plan, and there is no way that you cannot bypass that. You have to have that, and you have to give that. You can't just say, I will not give, nothing like that. You have to give that, and that is a mandatory thing. Otherwise, you will be held responsible by the ROC and SEBI. The evaluation of independent directors shall be done by the entire board of directors, which shall include performance of the directors. Independent directors' performance have to be evaluated, and that will be evaluated by the all directors. One or chairman, MD, they cannot just evaluate. The other directors also have to evaluate. Performance of the director, whether whatever he did is as per requirement or not. Fulfillment of the independence criteria as specified in these regulations and their independence from the management. That has also to be certified or examined by the entire board. So suppose ROC or at a later date, because of some complaint, SEBI or ROC or anywhere, it is found that the independent director is really not independent, then the independent director will be punished. But because the board of directors, which is given a duty to ensure this, can also be liable for punishment. Provided that the above evaluation, the director who are subject to evaluation shall not participate. So means when you are evaluating one independent directors, other independent directors can participate, but because it says entire board, but that particular director whose performance is being evaluated cannot participate. The statement to be annexed to the notice as referred to in subsection 1 of the section 102 of Companies Act for each item of special business to be transacted at a general meeting shall also set forth clearly the recommendation of the board to shareholders on such each of the specific items. When you are giving a resolution for special business, actually, what is the regular business of a board of directors, AGM? To appoint or reappoint directors, to appoint or reappoint auditors, to declare dividends. So all that is required voting by shareholders. So these are the general business. But suppose you need some special business, like we have read in another case, like this payment to directors as a special resolution, all that, when you are putting into a AGM general meeting, that needs a proper clear-cut recommendations, and why the board is recommending that all that logic has to be given, so that the shareholder is informed and then he can vote. Maximum number of directors. A person can be a director in maximum 8 listed entities with effect from 1st April 2019 and a maximum of 7 listed entities from 1st April 2020. So now it is 7 listed entities. If you are a director in a listed company, then you can be director in another 6 listed companies. Notwithstanding above means if you are director in 7 listed companies, still then any person who is serving as a whole-time director, managing director in any listed entity, equity shares, shall serve as an independent director in not more than 3 listed entities. So it says that this law is not applicable in a case where a person who is serving as a whole-time director, managing director in any listed entity, equity shares only, where the company has listed equity shares only, shall serve as an independent director in not more than 3 listed entities. Means a managing director of a particular company whose share is being traded in the stock exchange cannot be independent director in more than 3 listed entities. Similarly, a whole-time director who is an executive director in a listed company whose equity shares are listed, only equity shares are listed, that company, that whole-time director cannot serve as independent director in not more than 3. Why they have done this? They want to bring in more clarity and independence to the board of directors. So we'll stop at this today, and in next class tomorrow we'll take insolvency and bankruptcy code. Hope you people have understood something. And as I said, up to module 3 today, I will be sharing with Rasmi Madam. Someone has given a number, but I will not share with any of your group. I will share with Rasmi Madam. That will be good. I don't know who has given this message. I'll be sharing with Rasmi Madam. She will be sharing with you. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.